Welcome to ChiroSphere, where we talk about all things chiropractic and, well, some things not so chiropractic. I'm Dr. Ray Foxworth, your host for ChiroSphere and CEO of ChiroHealth USA, the network that works for chiropractic. Today, we're asking the question, what does it take to build not just a successful practice, but a lasting legacy in healthcare? Today's guest has spent more than 4 decades answering that question, not just for himself, but for thousands of other practitioners across the country. We're joined by Dr. Noel Lloyd, founder of 5-Star Management, with over 40 years' experience in practice management, leadership, and personal development. Dr. Lloyd has helped shape the trajectory of countless chiropractic practices and leaders. But beyond systems and strategy, his real focus has always been on something deeper: vision, purpose, and building a life that aligns with both. Today, we're diving into what it really takes to grow, sustain, and lead at a high level without losing sight of why you started practice in the first place. Welcome, Dr. Lloyd.
Well, thank you, Doc. I appreciate it. I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to this.
Well, I'm looking forward to you dropping some nuggets to our listeners, and I know they're going to get a lot out of this particular podcast. Let's get personal right up front. You all right with that?
Yes.
So you and I have been involved in chiropractic for 40 plus years. And I got to ask you, what still drives your passion for helping doctors in our profession?
Well, by the way, I graduated from Palmer Chiropractic College in 1971. So I've been a chiropractor for over 50 years. And even though I don't practice today, one of the things that drives my passion, I was on the phone today with a young man who I've helped him build his practice, help more people have more fun, make more money. I've helped him replicate his success in now 3, 4 associates, and he's increased by 400% in his practice. He loves his practice. He loves his associate. He loves his team. And interesting thing about him, he got injured to the point where he couldn't practice anymore. And so that was my story. So one of the things that I'm helping him do is take care of his entire community, not through his hands, but through great associates who are an absolute treat to deal with. And if I get a chance to work with somebody who I like their heart, I like their motive, I like the way they treat people, I like the way that they treat us, I mean, that's not work. That's a mission for me.
Yeah, that's worth getting up for every day, right?
Yes.
No doubt. So, having been at this 50 years, 40 kind of in
Yes.
the coaching world,
Yeah.
I know we have both seen so many changes in this profession over the years. But what do you
Yes.
think are the biggest shifts in what it takes today to build a successful practice compared to the Mercedes 80s, where you could send out an insurance claim form without a stamp on it and you still got a check?
Yes. That's right. That's right. Well, um, for years and literally decades, the reason that people got in touch with me as a practice management consultant through 5-Star Management was new patients. And I think that's still true today, that if you can produce new patients, if you know how to produce new patients, chiropractic all by itself is so wonderful that you'll have a great chiropractic practice. So the thing that has remained constant is that you have to know how to be able to present what you do to your patients and to the community. And of course, over the last 10, 15 years, social media has totally taken over that type of presentation, reaching out into the community. The thing that I find that people get in touch with me for is that they have this busy, successful practice, and now they're finding that that busy, successful practice has them. And I was talking to a guy the other day who said, "What good is my success? Because I don't have any time to enjoy it." And hadn't had a full week off other than a 4-day, 3-day weekend. Sometimes, depending on Christmas and New Year's and other holidays, he might get a couple more days. But he said, "I don't have that time to enjoy my success." So one of the things that I do is I help doctors replicate their success in another chiropractor under their roof, and to provide an environment that the associate thinks, "Hey, this is really, really a great position to have," and where the clinic owner thinks, "Hey, this is a really good associate to have." And by the way, that's not as easy as some might think it is, because it takes some work in order to be able to offer that and be able to administrate that.
No doubt about it. I was sharing, for our listeners, I was sharing with Dr. Lloyd that early on in my practice, I brought in 3 associates. I had to fire them. One of them I fired twice, which was really interesting because it was my father.
Yes.
Noel, I could not get him to show up on time. And if you wanna piss me off, don't be there when your patients are there or walking in the door when they are. So, I mean, it made for interesting Thanksgiving dinners. No, I mean, we loved each other. We got along well, but that was just that's just who he was, and it wasn't congruent with how I wanted to run my practice. I never wanted my patients' butt to hit the seat in the waiting room. I wanted them, brought back and taken care of. And so I finally, for me, I had a great mentor at that time, who had run associate practices for years. Same situation, multiple back surgeries, couldn't do it anymore, and I just said, "Dave, I give up. I've tried this my way. I think I'm smart. I'm too smart for my own good, and I give up. What I need to do?" And I followed what he did, and fortunately, it worked out well from that. But I really want to focus in on this point for the doctor that is successful and not being able to enjoy it. That was me. I felt like after a number of years in practice that my practice was a ball and chain, honestly.
Right.
My kids' events, miss being involved in the community. My friends, not in chiropractic, but other friends would take off and have a vacation and say, "Ray, why don't you go with us?" And it's like, you guys don't understand what a vacation cost me. You spend your
Yes.
2,500, 3,000 bucks. I not only spend that, but I just lost five or $10,000 in revenue. And
Right.
man, when you finally figure out how to make that, like you described, the win-win situation, I would never go back to practicing solo again. It is just such a challenge, and so I applaud what you've been doing for decades, to help doctors realize you can't have a life and a practice. They're not
Well,
mutually ex
Well, let me tell you a great story. There's a young woman I started to coach 23 years ago, and she wanted to have a chiropractic practice, and she was married, and soon she wanted to have kids. So I coached her through a maternity leave, and I helped her bring in some help, not an associate at that first time, but eventually we started bringing in associates. She had 5 maternity leaves. Every year, she gets 12 weeks off.
Mm.
Every year. Every year, she takes a full month vacation. Now, anybody can take a full month vacation, right? You just have to be willing to come back to the smoldering embers that used to be your practice. But
Yeah.
she came back in October from spending an entire month in Australia to a record October. And it would have been her record month for the year, except that September snuck in and beat all all the records, just the month prior to that. And it's this being able to put together a team, and she has 3 associates, all of whom, by the way, were associates in other programs and who weren't helping enough people, having enough fun, making enough money, and they came to work for her. One young man doubled his income,
Wow.
but also being able to do that because he produces well for her as well. Now, she does beautifully, and every single year, she does the best every year, gets 12 weeks off, and the junior associate will cover the vacation of the senior associate, and the senior will cover the vacation of the junior associate. So we end up putting together what actually works like a co-op. And so this quality of life thing is so important. By the way, here's another thing that I'm sure you know. 51% of chiropractic students today are young women.
Yes.
And according to my late mother, my dear wife, and every single successful woman chiropractor that I coach, they will tell you that they also want to be wives and moms. And if you can provide an environment so that a very, very high quality woman chiropractor can be a wife, be a mom, and take care of patients. I mean, they typically really, really like it if you provide what I call a win-win environment. And I've got a bunch of docs who I have spoken to their associates, and they're super, super grateful that somebody provided a business opportunity where they can help a lot of people, have a lot of fun, make great money. And the clinic owner does super, super well that way as well.
Yeah. So, over the years, I've seen your marketing and advertising, and you talk about this win-win associates. And
Right.
what is that system? What does it really look like in
Well,
practice?
nobody ever went to chiropractic college dreaming about working for me. What they want to do is they want to help people have fun, make money, just like we did. And if I put somebody under my roof with an opportunity to help as many people as they want, to have as much fun as they want, and make as much money as they want, and they know that I am on their side, I'm there to help facilitate their success, they have won. And I set up the business in such a way that I get the help in the practice. I get the freedom because if I have two associates, there's parenthetically, let me just mention this. We talk about you plus two. If you have two associates, they can cover your practice when you go on vacation and they won't resent it because they also have somebody else to cover their practice when they go on vacation. So the win-win for the associate is that somebody's on their side, a mentor who knows how to coach them and how to help them get up to good volume where they're helping a lot of people, having a lot of fun, making great money. And our associates are some of the best paid associates in the industry. And it's not because they're taking from the clinic director, it's just we teach them how to help a lot of people, have a lot of fun, make great money. Now, the win for the clinic director is the clinic director gets help, gets freedom, and gets extra money. So this has never made any sense to me. You go to apply to a position in a clinic, and the clinic director says, "This is what I'm going to pay you. These are my goals. Get at it." Now, today, that's not very motivational. But if I can say in my interview process, find out what the goals of the applicant are. And then I know how to help them reach those goals. And they know I'm on their side, and especially once I've established a track record. Um, oh, I've got to tell you this. In a good number of offices that I coach, the interview process for the associate, part of it is that the clinic director just says to the applicant for the associate position, "I want you to sit in the break room and talk to my other associates. Ask them if what I'm telling you isn't God's truth." And they'll sit there and I've heard them. I've actually heard them say, "We help a lot of people. We have a lot of fun. We make great money. We all work as a team. The doctor's on my side. I know he's got my back, or I know she's got my back." So
You know,
that's win-win. The energy and the motivation for the associate is that they know that the clinic director is on their side, wants to see them make great money. And we've had associates that make over $300,000. Now they produce well. They produce well. They're involved in the marketing. They're involved in patient management. Of course, they're involved in all kinds of patient care, and they get to be involved in training process and management of the clinic. So, I mean, these teams that we put together are really, really win-win teams. And win-win is it's kind of catchy. So if a doctor learns how to offer a win-win opportunity for his associate, he's also offering a win-win opportunity for other team members. Helping people win at work. That's like you were talking about, Christy, that it was your job to make her job the best job she ever had. Well, that's win-win, very, very, very well capsulized, and
Yep,
you
yep,
just set it up in an environment where the clinic director gets help, gets freedom, and gets extra money.
yep. I'm grew up in Yazoo City, Mississippi, home of Zig Ziglar. I'm sure you've heard that name over the years. His sister was my next door neighbor. His nephews and I were my childhood friends. And early on in another life, I worked for this company, and part of the training of that company was his book, See You at the Top. And
Yes.
something that I read in that book has stuck with me my entire life. And it's, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want.
Right.
And when you put together an environment like that and they know you've got their back, that that is that is so different than what you hear and you read in some of these Facebook groups about the abusive relationship sometimes between
Yes.
the owner doc and the associate. I mean, I hear some stories and read some that just break your heart, and I want to go find out who
I
the doctor is and just, what are you doing? uh,
Well,
you're really screwing this stuff bad, but
the vast
it's
the
happened.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on your comment.
No, no, I was saying that's one way. I have actually had this conversation with a doc. He bragged about how many associates he had been through. This one just wasn't good enough to, and I told him, I said, "You're a dear friend of mine. You're also an idiot. What
Yes,
are
he
you
does.
doing spending all of this time, effort, and energy bringing some in and by his own admission, well, if I can keep him a year, that's good." And I'm going like,
Oh, yeah.
"You have completely missed the boat." And so he was churning associates, did the same thing with his employees, by the way.
Yes.
Nobody ever wanted to stay. And you just, they just don't get it. Some of them don't. So, I'm
Well, the vast majority of associateships end on a sour note. In other words, the clinic director didn't get what he or she was looking for, and neither did the associate. And I've met some really, really nice, wonderful people, and they just had some really they had misunderstanding of how to develop a chiropractor. One of the things that we do in our interview process, and it's a question that I love asking, is what do you want to be doing in 5 years? And I ask it very, very, very soon in the question process, maybe my second or third question. It's the first important question. What do you want to be doing in 5 years? And those goals, I want to see what they light up for because I want to choose the right associate. And I remember interviewing this one kid, and he said, "Well, I wanna be cutting back." I said, "Excuse me?" Um, and so I wanna interview somebody who wants to help a lot of people, have a lot of fun, make a lot of money. Um, so I, uh, I'm looking for somebody who's driven, somebody who's likable, and somebody who's coachable. And those are my 3 criterion. I
no
want
doubt.
somebody who wants, I want somebody I'm gonna be awake if I'm a practicing chiropractor working any place between 30 and 40 hours a week in the clinic, I'm gonna be awake more with my associate than I will with my spouse. And so I've got to spend time with them. Also, if I like them, my team's going to like them and my patients are going to like them. So, I mean, just for self preservation, they have to be likable and they have to want something because building a great practice for an associate, even our really, really successful ones, it takes work. But if if they want something and you can teach them something and they're likable, you can build this wonderful relationship. Um, I was talking to a doctor about his associate, and I said, "When you round the corner and you see the car in the parking lot, what happens to your face and what happens to your tummy?"
Oh boy, that hits home.
So that's a test, right? If you have the right person. Now, typically, and I believe it's on us as clinic owners to offer a job that works and to offer one based I call it the new paradigm, the win-win paradigm. Um, but if you get a knot in your stomach and a frown on your face, or you think about going to work and you have to see your associate, you didn't set it up right, you don't have the right person. Um,
No,
I
yeah,
rounded the corner. I was gonna get to the clinic early, and I noticed the lights were on in the clinic, and I thought, "Did somebody forget to turn them off?" Then I saw my associate's car in the parking lot, and I got this smile on my face. He was a great guy. I walked in the clinic, and he had 3 new patients filling out paperwork in the reception area. He had been to a screening the night before, made appointments for them to come in early, and he was back with a 4th new patient doing an examination, and I ended up helping him doing that. But that's the type of associate who's driven, who's likable, and who's teachable, and I ended up helping him process those new patients. Great, great kid. We built a great practice together. He ended up buying it for me. I built 10 clinics and sold them all to great associates,
you
and
know
I've
that same
developed over 70 associates.
the same thing holds true with staff members. If you if you don't like the feeling when you walk in, or you know you're going to have to do with so and so today, or
Right,
wonder what's going to be going on with her today, I call those resident terrorists. And the sooner we can, but I mean, let's face it, there are just some people that are wired to be instigators and troublemakers and stir
right,
things up. And the sooner you can call them former employees, the better. But before you do that, make sure they're not a result of you.
right, right,
You
right.
don't like the way they're not trained or they're not doing their job, make sure you're doing your job first. But then when it's time, it's time. So let me change directions a little bit.
Okay.
When you look at the most successful chiropractors you've worked with, what would you say separates those who are thriving long term versus those who struggle? And specifically, what I'm talking about, and I've seen this with, I mean, I did it for a while. I've had colleagues that experience this. They'll ramp up their practice, they'll get really, really busy, and then they'll return to baseline. And they
Right.
do that over and over again. What do you think is happening in these cases? And what would be some of the first things you'd take a look at fixing?
Well, I developed a postulate that I call the rule of 75. You can't maintain or sustain what requires over 75% of your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual effort. It's like running a car at red line the entire time. And this is what the busy, successful chiropractor tries to do frequently. And by the way, let's say that your busiest week is 240, and then you go to 260, but you find yourself back at 240. You're on a fixed income. I mean, it's a good income, but it's a fixed income. And so one of the things that we do for our clients is we analyze on 12 different capacity issues, and the busy, successful chiropractor, typically, he or she needs another chiropractor. There, there was a young man who I started to coach with, and he says, "Well, I think I need an associate." And he had been developed in a clinic that I had helped prior to that. In his first year, they added 150 visits a week to a practice that was already 250. He saw fewer patients, and of course, they made a heck of a lot more money, and it was because there's another person there in order to take care of the patient. So that's the biggest capacity issue for the busy, successful chiropractor is he or she needs to learn how to develop another chiropractor.
Yep.
And then if you do it the wrong way, though, it's miserable. and you'll say to yourself, "I never, ever, ever wanna have another associate." Then you go back to being stuck bouncing back and forth between what you can do as maximum and what you can do that's comfort.
Yeah, those are such good points. Again, I've got colleagues that they get so busy, and then you just can't. I mean, you just can't sustain it on your own. And when you talk about capacity blockages, clearly delivering the care is a major one. You need an associate, but
Yes.
there are other limiting factors in I mean, a parking lot can be a
Yes,
capacity blockage. The number of staff that you have can be a capacity issue, and so it's a matter of going through the practice and seeing where all the levers are that you can pull that help increase your capacity, your efficiency, your ability to take people and see more people without it stressing everybody else. Because if it stresses the practice out, the employees, guess what's going to happen? They're gonna fall
right,
back down to their level of comfort. So,
right.
fixing those capacity blockages are absolutely key. Well, hang tight, everyone, while we take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Welcome back to our podcast with Dr. Noel Lloyd. We're gonna continue on with our questions here, really enjoying the conversation. So, you talk about having fun, financial success, taking care of a lot of people. In your experience, what's the biggest misconception people have about balancing your purpose, your fun, and your financial success? Because let's face it, they can get out of kilter sometime.
Well, I think that, um, I've talked to and I'm gonna talk about the busy, successful chiropractor. He or she could be heavily balanced in care. The practice needs you. The practice, I mean, if you're not there, you're not delivering service, and of course, you're not generating income. And we talked a little bit earlier about a vacation. I talked to one of my prospective docs. He said, "I'm just going to bite the bullet and I'm going to take 2 weeks off." He was telling me this story, and he said that vacation cost him about 20,000 That was hard costs, hotels, paying trips, all that, plane tickets. He says, but it cost me a total of $50,000, even though I had a vacation relief doc. And when I came back to the practice, I thought the practice would be eager to see me, but the practice had hurt feelings and I had to kind of warm it up again. And he said, "Boy," he says, "I learned my lesson." So I know I sound like, a broken record, but it's developing people under your roof in such a way that they can have a great practice. If you don't do that, then you can never have balance. I mentioned earlier the young woman who gets 12 weeks off a year. I've got a number of doctors that when they first started Win-Win, they would just get 3 and 4-day weekends, who now get 5, 6, 8, 10 weeks off. One young woman told me we were in Hawaii doing a special event for some of our high achieving docs, and she was standing there with her son, and she said, "This year, my son thanked me for taking 10 weeks off and doing all these different family trips." So, you're never ever those little people that run around your house, the ones that call you mommy or daddy, or the ones that call you grandma or grandpa, they're gonna be 16, 18 years old, off to their separate lives like that, and you will have never had the opportunity to make the memories that you want to. So, I think if you work on your practice as a business and you teach other chiropractors to work as clinic people, you can have a great clinic team and do beautifully.
So let me ask you this because this is a recurring theme that I've noticed over the years, and again, some people close to me and just others that we've come across in the day to day of our business. There are doctors in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that their retirement or their exit strategy is a pine box. Unfortunately, that's
Yes.
about and they are on the verge of, or they're always feeling like, if I can just get up to this number and this amount of revenue, then I'll hire an associate. And I've often told them, unless you hire the associate, you're not going to get that number up and sustain it. And so sometimes it takes a leap of faith.
Yes.
More importantly, coaching. So, how would you encourage someone who is, they've had a good practice, it's served them well over the years, but they're reaching a point either physically, mentally, emotionally. Let's face it, you do this 30, 40 years, it takes a toll, but
Right.
they can't in their head, they've got to hit the numbers and the revenue before they hire the associate. Help help them work through that. What would you share with them?
Well, they need a plan for the associate to make money rather than cost money. I have talked to not countless, but many, in fact, many dozens of doctors who said, "Well, I had an associate, but it was so expensive." One guy said, "My associate cost me 60, 80, $100,000 a year, but I just figured that that was the cost that I had to pay for the freedom that I wanted to have." And our associates in our program with our plan make more money than their paycheck in 30 to 60 days. Now, I want to make sure that everybody who's listening understands. We recruit based on the fact that we are going to train you as an associate. And one of the things that we train in is marketing, and we facilitate marketing so that the associate produces new patients, that they do services, and that new patients and services are in excess of their paycheck, many of them in 30 days. And most of them, I mean, literally the majority in 60 days, and 90% make more money than they cost, and they do that in 120 days. So I was talking with one of my clients, and he said, "I'm ready to hire my associate." I said, "So let's go back to one of the assignments, and that is a marketing plan for the associate. We have to be able to see it, understand it, and that's one of the things that I do with my clients is I help them put together a training program and a marketing plan, and then we actually do training with their associates as well so they can produce new patients. Now, if you want a high paid associate, you want the associate to be able to produce the new patients that generate the service, that produce the high pay, and then also be able to cover overhead and be able to have money for the clinic owner as well. You don't wanna have high-paid associates and not have extra new patients or extra service. That just means that you're gonna make less money. So, um, I think of it this way, is that I wanna bring somebody in and I wanna replicate my success, my ability to produce referrals, my ability uh, to stay in a patient-valued relationship, and I'm gonna train, train, train on all those different things, and then I'm also gonna facilitate them producing extra new patients. I've g this is, I met a guy who was doing about a half million bucks. This year, he's doing 4,000,000. His practice has actually gone down a little bit. He sees fewer patients, but his 6 associates do absolutely wonderful. I've got multiple clients that have associates that produce $750,000. From that $750,000, there's a great paycheck for the associate, lots to cover overhead, and lots of money for the clinic director. And I've been asked, well, if somebody's making that great money, why do they stick around? It's because they're in a win-win environment where the clinic director is facilitating their success. And they know if they go out on their own, they're gonna have to work a lot harder, and it's gonna take them a while to build that practice back up, and they'll never get the vacation or the camaraderie that they got in the win-win associateship. But
That
you're right, sometimes you have to take a step of faith. I think this is what I think a first step of faith is. for some people. Get on the phone with me or get on the phone with George who works for me, and let us answer as many questions as you have. Not all people should have associates, but those who want to help more people, have more fun, make more money, who wanna be able to enjoy their success, they should hop on the phone.
No doubt. I've heard the saying, "You should pay them like you never want them to leave."
Yeah, but you need to pay them out of what they
Oh, what they're
produce.
generating. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, right, and it now, here's I've seen this happen a lot. They bring in an associate, and the practice is doing 240, 250, and the associate starts seeing 50 patient visits, and the clinic director is now seeing 200. Well, I've gotta pay the associate. There's no extra volume, so we're growing the practice. It's not that we're distributing the labor, because most people, unless the associate produces new patients, most people can't afford an associate.
It makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if a doctor could only implement one new system or a habit today to improve their practice, what would you recommend?
Well, we do something that we call a capacity quiz, and we check on 12 different things, and I suggest that you have a team meeting, and you everybody takes the quiz, and you give what I call diplomatic immunity. For instance, if a
Good
team
term.
member says the doctor talks too much and, spends too much time, we could get a lot more people on the schedule if you wouldn't talk so much, doctor. And they don't wanna tell the doctor that because the doctor seems to be having fun. So they do a capacity quiz, and they start to tune up the practice. I just brought on a new client about 2 months ago, and I said, "I want you to play the part of the prototypical associate. I want you to treat your day 1 the way you want your associate to. I want you to treat your day 2 the way you want your associate to. I want you to treat the team, the schedule, the practice, the marketing, everything just the way you want your associate to." Then, when you get your associate, and he's gonna have his associate probably this month, then the team members can point to the associate and say, "You do what the doctor does, and you'll be super successful," and he'll just facilitate his success by teaching his own curriculum by exam.
It makes a lot of sense. So what's one piece of advice you wish you had when you first started your career? We
Oh,
we talked a
geez.
moment ago about, uh, Dr. Larry Marks and both being an influence,
Yes.
in our careers, and, it's always good to run into him, but, uh, early on, did you start out with a coach, or did you bump your head and your nose and fall on what did that look like, and what do you wish someone had told you?
I went to a technique seminar, and I met a friend. He became a good friend. His name was Bill. And he went away and came back to the technique seminar, and his practice had doubled. And I said, "How did you do that?" And he said, "Well, I signed up with a practice coach." I said, "Well, what are you doing differently?" He said, "Well, I'm just much, much, much more organized. I'm and and I think that doctors should take control of their patients' care. They should be a leader. They should be directive." And so, I ended up with a practice coach, Dr. Chuck Gibson, and,
Uh,
I mean, it was like somebody turned the floodlights on in my practice, and I could see all the mistakes I was making, and I had somebody to go to talk to, and, uh, I have better patients, I rendered better care. So I ended up being coached quite a while, and, absolutely loved it before I started five-star management and
wow.
started coaching doctors, and that's been 40 plus years ago. So,
So I
ask for advice. And I tell this to students that your goals should pick your associateship, and the way to figure out a good associateship is to visit as many practices as you can. I suggest that people not sit in their bunker and hunker down, but they speak to different practice coaches. This is what I want to do. If I worked with you, how would we do that? And it has to make sense. And you have to like the person that you're working with as a coach as well.
No
So
doubt.
I would have gotten on the phone sooner. Gratefully, I was only 3 or 4 years into practice when I found Chuck Gibson.
Well, I know this podcast is going to speak to a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So for those that are interested in talking with you and finding out what you can potentially do for them, what's the best way to reach you?
You should go to our website, my5star, MyFivestar, my5star.com, and take a look at our website and see if there's a bunch of buttons on it that says book a call. And by the way, there's no high pressure in our call. This is just an opportunity to meet somebody, find out what do you want to do. Um, and if you want to add doctors to your practice, if you want to add patient visits to your practice, if you want to add increase revenue, we would give you a plan. This is what we'd do first. Here's what we'd do second. And then it's a simple process of figuring out that if it sounds like, hey, I want to do that, then maybe we've got something to talk about. And if you don't want to do that, we're fine with that because we meet people all the time on these free calls that end up working with us. And if you don't, that's okay. We just get a chance to make a new friend.
Good deal. So I have some just for fun questions to wrap this up. Who's your
Okay.
who's your hero and why?
The late Tim Keller. Tim Keller was a pastor at Redeemer Church, Presbyterian Church in Manhattan. I love his preaching, and he died of pancreatic cancer, regrettably, a couple of years ago. Great guy. Um, um, my dad was my hero. My dad was one of the kindest, best guys. I had a patient who his name was Bob Boardman, and Bob Boardman was a missionary in Japan. Actually, lived in my home because I was taking care of him chiropractically, and I respected Bob. So I've been so blessed with really good people in my life.
What talent do you have that most people don't know about?
Well, I'm a pilot.
Oh, there
I'm a
you go.
really good pilot, and I fly a lot. I
Yeah,
have a
the
little
really,
tiny
really bad ones don't do so well. No.
That's right. Um, I I also, for
What do you
instance,
fly?
what's that?
What what do you fly?
I fly, it's a home built, it's called an RV-6A, and I didn't build it. I know how to turn it on, and I know how to fly it. And I'm a really I'm a very good pilot. That means I'm safe, but I love to fly. I also can see clearly and articulate a vision. I can see clearly and articulate a vision.
That's
Um,
certainly a
uh,
gift.
I also lead a great mastermind. Um, I love nothing more than to have all of my clients in a group and to be able to facilitate. Hey, Brian, you do that particularly well. Why don't you tell us how you do that? And to just to facilitate all that knowledge between clients. I love that.
Last one, what's the worst job you ever had?
I worked for a cleaning service while I was at Palmer College,
Well,
and I
there you go, a lot of
remember one
motivation.
night. What's that?
I say that's a lot of motivation to finish school.
Oh, boy, I tell you, I was down on my hands and knees in a half an inch of cleaning solution with a razor blade, taking buildup wax off a floor in a bank building at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Wow,
I I hated that job.
great
I
motivation.
Yes, that's right, that's right.
Well, doctors, if you're offering discounts in your practice, make sure you're not violating state or federal rules on dual fee schedules, inducements, or any kickback laws. The fines are absolutely serious. Our profitable discount strategy keeps your discounts fully compliant and profitable. It starts with a free, no obligation call to see if we can help, just like we've helped thousands of doctors nationwide. Many of our docs have seen a 20% increase in revenue and a 50% patient retention within our network. For 18 years, over 7,000 practices have helped 4.3 million patient family members get affordable care through ChiroHealth USA. If you want more revenue, better retention, and peace of mind, call 888-719-9990 or visit CHUSA.com, that's CHUSA.com, to see why ChiroHealth USA is the network that works for chiropractic and you. Thank you so much, Dr. Lloyd. Really enjoyed our time together.
Ray, I had fun as well. Thanks for having me as your guest.
You bet. Take care.